Whoa, hello everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. What a difference the difference makes, by the way. We looked definitely probably more realistically big as we should. But it's Monday. We are back. American Scouser podcast. Welcome to it. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin here in Chicago. With us this week is Gally, as always. Gally, what's happening?
Just another day, just another Monday. Happy.
It is a happy Monday, actually. It hasn't been that shabby. And with us today, after causing havoc in New York, very knowledgeable and very purple, Bickler is with us today. Bickler, what's happening?
Yeah, I'm good. We got all the kids are back from sleepaway camp, so we got 60 minutes to do this before I can rip all the duct tape off them and get them out of the closet. So
yeah, it sounds like there's going to be major construction because he asked for black bricks before the show so he can build a wall like we have going over here behind us. So we'll get that work. Get the kids working on that. Get some bricks, get some mortar, and get into action. But we always start. Alan is with us as always. Brian, good evening to everyone. Let's get the show on the road. And the best way to get the show on the road is the most popular segment of all, trivia. I've actually, like, trivia is so popular, guys. You know, how popular, trivia is so popular that I get like questions sent from like 4 or 5 different sources now every week. But for once, I had done my own homework, kind of, sort of. I have prepared my own question, so it didn't go lazy. So we'll go with that one. We're going to talk about in a little bit about Fab and his possible sale or pending sale or whatever the case might be. If it happens in the dollar amount that is being initially discussed, it would be actually, looks like about like our 5th highest sale of a player. So this is going to be great because there's wrong answers, I guess, but you guys should be able to get some of the answers right. Give me the top 10 sales of Liverpool to date.
10.
Relatively easy.
10. You want to
just going to be recent.
Dude, I wasn't prepared for the 2-hour pod. Hold on.
I was just going to say, you want to just have this go the rest of the time. Me and Paul just ramble off sales until freaking 9:02.
We'll go one by one, and then you guys should be able to, like, I think we're going to get to 10 over here. Okay, Bickler, shoot number 1. Oh. Who do you think is 1? That should be an easy one.
Coutinho.
Done. Gally, you're up next. Give me another one.
I don't think it's number 2. It might be, but Suarez.
Suarez is number 2. Oh, my God. We're on the roll with a Monday. 3, Bickler, go.
Let's see. We did Coutinho. We did Suarez. Who is out there?
Nobody likes him.
Nobody likes him. I mean, at least everybody that leaves, nobody likes. Torres?
Torres is 4 on the list. I mean, some people.
Hey, dude, we're doing well. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that was
Torres.
We got to stop at 5.
Gally, back to you. Who do you think would be 3? Nobody likes him. I thought that was a good tip.
Nobody likes him.
Still gets booed every time he touches the ball. Come on, people. Let's do this.
Raheem Sterling.
Raheem
Sterling. It was coming. It was coming there. I was going to go Torres next, honestly, so good shout. So we actually have top 4 right there. That's our top 4.
Yes. Well, these are the easy ones, so let's not get too
excited.
Okay.
Well, this is as good as we do.
Might as well. Yeah, I know. But
it's going to get real hairy after this. I was going to go with Mane, and then you said really hated, and that thought.
No, that was Sterling. We got the hated one with Sterling.
Right.
Mane is definitely in the top 10, Paul. I would throw it out there because I'll give you a layup there.
He's setting you up.
If you don't, I will.
You know who went for a ridiculous amount that's got to be up there? I think Mane's there, but I also think Benteke's up here.
So are you going with Benteke?
No, I go Mane.
Mane is 6th, actually. 5th is
Xabi Alonso.
7. Give me the 5th. We already got it.
Was it Xabi Alonso?
Yes. Alonso is 5. So now we're up to 8. This is where it gets really tricky and sticky, gentlemen. So Coutinho, Suarez, Sterling, Torres, Alonso, Mane, Benteke, and Bickler. I don't think anybody's going to get this, dude. More power to you.
Is it a center back?
Is it who?
Is it a center back? I think I know who's up there.
I don't know. Easy.
It's a center back, isn't it? Is this somebody who we almost left in Alcatraz?
Well, I'm amazed. I
think Sacco's up there.
I was about to say, I
is
think Sacco's in the top 10. He's 8th?
I was amazed to see this, to be honest with you.
That's wild.
So many freaking years.
And
he's still number 8 and said this just shows that we haven't sold anybody in the last.
I was just gonna say this just makes my point every single week. We're gonna do it again tonight, I think.
17, 18.
Yeah, these players would be like 60th on Manchester City's outgoings.
Well, how much was the Sacco deal?
28.2, which honestly, even today's numbers is pretty high. So more power to Crystal Palace.
Unbelievable. They just like that fancy haircut. He was keeping barbers in freaking whatever part of London that is in full effect. I'll tell you that.
We got something shady going on with Palace because we sold him Benteke for 31 the season before, and then sold him Sacco the season after at 28. Number 9, we're back to you, Kelly.
Is it Dom Solanke?
He's number 10.
I knew it was, which is still shocking and wrong. Fucking dumb people of Bournemouth.
Yes, I mean that is like more power to them as well. Because even today's rate, that seems. I mean, I kind of look at it as this was like basically 4 seasons ago, and even now it feels like that's like a really good amount that we fetch kind of thing if we sold them right now for that rate. But one left, Bickler.
Trying to think, we had this stretch where we had like a lot of academy kids good for good money to like Bournemouth, right? We had like Nico, Hyde was up there around 20.
Injury.
Yeah, Ings is actually a pretty good shout. Danny Ings has got to be up there. I'll go Ings.
Ings, it is.
All right.
Number 9, 25.
Help from the helps.
That's crazy. I mean, I thought, honestly, like out of this list, I had kind of forgotten about Benteke. Maybe that's kind of like.
Wait, is Mascherano less than Danny Ings going out?
Mascherano is less than Solanke, dude.
Oh, wow.
That's another shocker.
That's crazy.
He's 11, actually. And then right after that, he's the same as Nico, which was obviously last offseason. Then you get Jordan.
That's
Knight
awful,
and,
man.
Andy Carroll and the rest of the gang. But
how much was Rhian Brewster? I felt like we fleeced them.
You know, I don't know why I don't see him on this list. I thought he was 12 for 13.
Oh, I thought he was more, but I could be wrong.
I don't know if it was.
I thought it was closer.
I don't see him on the transfer market list for some reason. But he was right there. He was like, because I want to say he was about like 18. So he was right up there, like in like 12, 13 or something like that. Honestly, out of this list, I was like literally shocked to see Sacco. I was like, really? We got that much for him? Because I totally forgot that we did.
If you had given me 5.5 minutes for me and Bickler to get 10 names properly correct out of about 12 total opportunities, or I think actually it was our first 10 tries, we got all 10. I genuinely would have been like, I would have taken the over and then some. So this is something else.
It feels like a sober January pod or something. I don't know.
Sacco was the only tricky one that I didn't know if you guys would be able to kind of guess. But yeah, good guesses all around. See, well done. Don't be all love trivia now. I went easy this week to set the mood up. So let's really trash the mood now. Let's go to the transfer business. So kind of like Fab is the one that kind of started this. Where are we at with this gentleman? Bickler, let's start with you over this. Happy with what we're going to get one way or the other, it seems like, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's still a lot of questions about, like, whether this club can pay this amount up front, which is, I don't love the fact that it's going to come in installments, it looks like, but I do think 40 about it is as good as it gets for Fabinho, who I think a lot of us are conveniently forgetting how bad he was last year for long stretches of the season. Like, he was good like one of every 3 matches, maybe, if we're being generous, right? And I think that's a real problem for somebody his age, in his position, who takes on so much responsibility in that midfield. I hate that he's going, but I understand it, and I think it's good business to cash in on that. I hate the CDM market right now. It's super shallow, and I think it's like there seems to be a real drop between the top CDM talent and everybody else. And I think that's, we're talking big money for Labia, but that dude is not like he's going to be a stud, but in terms of stepping in, I don't know that he's at that level where he's going to just step in and really swing out of the gates. And I think that's going to be tough. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And I think, we talked about this when we were adding midfielders. We talked about like how practical McAllister was. And I think this is where that kind of comes in because he played the majority of his games last year as a CDM. Granted, it was a lot of times in the double pivot, but when Caicedo had to go to right back with the injuries, he played a lot in that lone 6 role. So I think as a Swiss Army midfielder, like, he's kind of like a jackknife and where we can probably fit him in there if we need to. So I don't think it's as dire as some people think it is. It'll be real interesting to see what happens here, though. But 40 for Fab is good business.
Yeah, we were talking about it this morning. Gally, actually, you were in the live audience. By the way, not every morning, guys got to sleep. But Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, 9 a.m. Central, we do the morning coffee show, and we're doing it with the Polish Prince this morning. And one thing that came up, and maybe I set the parameters too short, Gally, as a year. You think if this offer came 2 seasons ago, we would kind of scoff at this. But with his recent form last year, everybody, including like Shelton in the comments, was saying, take it and run. I think in the morning when we were talking about it, I said a year back, but I kind of forgot how we finished the season before. So you think we go back 2 seasons, and if somebody came in and said 40, we were like, get the hell out of here. Whereas now, after seeing last season, we're like, yes, please.
Yeah, and I think to your point and to Paul's, it's more like 18 months, which was the second half of the quad, quest season. The quest for 4, 2 0-0 freaking draws, and you get some cups on penalties, you son of a bitch. But like I was talking about it that spring, right? That I saw a decline in him. He looked like a different player. It really wasn't until the Champions League final against Real Madrid that he really had a good performance after January or February of 2022. And then 2023 is just completely a lost year for him. And I think this is the best you can ask for. You've had a guy 5-6 years. He's won everything. He's played way too many minutes. If there is a player who is the poster child for not rotating enough, it's Fab, because we ran this dude into the ground. We took a world-class player. Actually, we took a really good player, and we made him world-class.
Yes.
And we ran him into the ground. Like, that's all there is to it. And for me, I think I said this in the comments. I don't hold it against Fab, and we've talked about the generational money, and let's put the social aspect of going to Saudi Arabia aside. The decision for a player like Fabinho, who's at the crossroads of his career at the highest level, to go take a 3-year deal at way more money than he knows he's worth, is basically a guy telling me I don't want to fight with a bunch of kids and the Swiss Army knife McAllister. I don't want to fight any longer at the highest level for my position in a side. I want to go somewhere I'm guaranteed to play, collect a big-ass paycheck, and I'll go back to Brazil with a, literally a boatload of money. And if that's his decision, then that's best of luck. But to me, that lets me know it's the right decision because that guy's not getting back to top form unless he wants to fight for it. And he doesn't anymore.
And that's the thing. When we were talking about players, I don't know if it was like last week. Heck, I mean, it could have been like any of these weeks. We were talking about like, going into this offseason, not knowing which player we're going to get at the, in the preseason and coming forward, and Fabinho was definitely one of them, along with Van Dijk and stuff like that. So I think the fact that we didn't know exactly which Fab we're getting makes it a lot easier decision. And I don't think this was in the plans at all, mind you. But I think when it comes to the table, it's a lot easier to say, okay, that's fine, because we kind of knew it was kind of like a roll of the dice anyway to see which Fabinho we're going to get. So you were talking about like the payments plan and stuff, Bickler. Do you think that affects how this money is used now? Or because it was kind of not in the plans, we got to kind of come up with a plan and whatever the price is, we're going to end up paying for it? Like, do we put on top of it and go after somebody, or do we go, well, nobody we want is available, crap, and wait till next offseason?
Well, I mean, history would tell you if we don't have the guy that we really want, we'll wait, right? But I'll tell you that like this squad is not in a position to do that. So I think, do I know what we're going to do? I don't know what we're going to do. I know what I do, and I know what the club historically has done. But like, I think there are just so many unknowns and so many variables. I don't think anybody knows. So to me, I don't think you have a choice. I think you have to go invest at least one more. I know there's a resurging Curtis Jones. I know we spent and got 2 key pieces for the midfield. I know that there are pieces behind it that can play, whether it's Bachetic. Look, that kid's injury is one that derails careers in a big way, and it's a reoccurring injury. So, like, I think people like putting their money in that kid being back and going to fight into the CDM role, I think are being incredibly naive. I personally don't feel like we have a choice. I feel like we have to go add another piece. Now, whether we like the club feels that way or not, I think we're going to find out. So,
well, I mean, I guess, Gally, I'll forward the same question to you, and then I'll add one more variable to the equation, Hendo's possible move. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that if both leave, definitely somebody has to come in. But do you think it affects in which way we spend that money?
If Henderson goes as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I think if Henderson goes, you have to bring in 2 players. You need one who can walk in and start. And then you need another player that offers cover at probably at least 2 positions in the midfield as like a project. And I think that's where like the Gravenberches and those names come up, because they can play in the 6, they can play in the 8, they can play in a double pivot. I think Lavia can do that as well. It really matters too where you're playing Trent, because if you're going to play Trent in this formation as an inverted winger, where the idea is that he's going to sit in a double pivot, and you thought he was going to do it next to Fab. To Paul's point, he can do that next to McAllister. Now you're just putting a shit ton of pressure on Curtis Jones, because he's now your starting left-sided midfielder, along with Slojabal, and then you have Thiago as cover and Harvey, and that's just not enough. Like, that's why you need 2 players, in my opinion. And I think you need one that can walk in and start. And really, I think you want one that's Premier League ready, and that's a lot harder to find.
Yeah. Because I think it goes back to what Victor was saying. I mean, I was talking about this morning. Doesn't this open the door to the sporting director to find that, for that second player especially, go get us a gem that in Germany. I mean, that's the strength for the cheap, and then we use this money, especially if both go, then you're talking like 40, 50, whatever, and then you do get Lavia and stuff like that. But one question that came up, I want to ask you guys and get your guys' take on it. Would you rather go with a young Lavia who has Premier League experience, but obviously still has room to grow, or do you go after Tchouameni or somebody like that? Would you prefer, I should say, a player like that who probably has more experience overall, still young, but doesn't have Premier League experience? Bickler.
If I had to pick one for this squad in this situation, I'm going with somebody like Amrabat, who's 26 years old and can play multiple positions and is actually a left-sided midfielder. Like, that's the thing I think a lot of people are missing on this is, like, we've got McAllister, we've got Soboslai, we've got some pieces here. Even the people that we're linked with are almost all primarily middle or right-sided midfielders. So I think that's the guy that makes the most sense to me, just both the versatility in where he's at in his professional career. I think United's got the inside track on this one, but that's who makes the most sense to me.
How about you, Jan?
It's a good shout by Paul. It is amazing, right? He was the guy everybody wanted in January because he came off a great World Cup. We didn't buy him in January, and now anytime people bring him up, he's not the quality that this side needs. It's just craziness. What a world 6 months changes. I could see us winning that fight, though, if we really went for him, just because does he want to come to the Premier League? He's going to make Premier League money no matter what. Would he rather have a chance to start from day one, or would he rather sit behind Casemiro? And he's not going to start over Casemiro, and they're not going to play a double pivot because they already have Bruno Fernandes to drop deep if they need it. So the United shout is more for cover. I like Amrabat. I made a comment I think maybe yesterday on the pod that I appeared on for us, and also in some Facebook group got slated today. And I didn't mean it like a long-term move. I think that's what the team needs is like a guy like Højbjerg from Spurs. Like they need an adult in the room to walk in. He's been at 2 different Premier League teams, and what he's proven the whole time is he's no star, but he can start every day.
Player.
He can start every day and do a job. Do I know we could get him? I know Atletico Madrid is trying to get him out of there right now. But to me, that's the type of player because he walks in, he brings leaderships, he brings a little calm, and he brings like the ability to break up the press. And he's Premier League proven. And he's proven it in a bigger side. I'm not saying he's a long-term answer, but if you got him in Labia, I feel like you have a guy to start right now, and you have the guy to take his job in 18 months, and everybody wins.
And that kind of says a lot.
Somewhere, I don't think it's a bad shout at all. He's not that old. He's only 27. But here's the thing. I mean, obviously, this is what transfer market values him at 45. That does seem really high, doesn't it, Pickler? For Højbjerg?
Yeah, I don't know what's 40 million nowadays. Do you know what I mean? For especially for a starting midfielder, yeah, Fab's what 30. So if you're saying that we're gonna give away a broken player for 40 and then go and get somebody like Højbjerg, and I think the fact that Atletico is in for him kind of tells you all you need to know about the player. He's a dog. He's a dog in the midfield, and that's what you want.
That's what I kind of felt like. We all talk about what we lose if we lose Henderson, and I know we'll get there, Tamuchin. I didn't mean to jump in. Yeah. I just wanted to timestamp the pod that you said one of my thoughts was a really good original idea at 21.5 minutes.
When was this?
Can we make that a short somewhere?
Got this shit down.
Yeah,
that's why this week, so we won't be able to clip this on.
Yeah, that's why I done that in every single article that goes out, whether it's relevant or not to the article.
So, yeah, I think that's a good shot in terms of the type of player, like the profile. That price seems awfully high, but obviously the transfer market prices are a little inflated. That's not really usually what players go for afterwards. But that's the kind of player you do need. I do like the concept of bringing somebody who knows what they're doing, especially if we're losing Henderson as well. So let's get to that because we were talking about it earlier. I think Brian mentioned in the comments that, it's a business decision for these guys to go. I don't know. At least I speak for myself. For somebody who has freaking backed freaking Hendo for the last decade over here against people who do not understand soccer and its value. And I am extremely disappointed that he would sell out because there's no other explanation for it, that he's selling out to go to Saudi Arabia. And the whole thing about, now all these Hendo haters trying to put a sleeve on this by saying, oh, he talked to Klopp. Klopp didn't say, he said he's not going to get minutes. I highly freaking doubt that Hendo is going to Saudi Arabia to play 90 minutes. It's just all about money if he's not starting. And I don't know. I'm like extremely disappointed in that sense. Like Fab, obviously Bobby ran the contract out and stuff like that. It is what it is. I don't expect him to be that loyal to the club and the mission and everything like that. But we're talking about a guy who's a captain, not to mention he has been an exemplary guy off the pitch with how he carries himself, the stuff he said. And to me now, this has all been a scam and a sham. I just feel extremely disappointed. I feel like a kid that, his his role model just freaking got caught doing something really wrong, because that's how it feels to me if he sells that. I think he still has a way out of this if this thing doesn't happen. But where are you with this Galley?
I'm going to disagree with you. There's no way out of this. He had a way out of this a week ago when reports came out, literally a week ago Friday, that he had agreed to the deal and he wanted to go and he asked to leave. He had a way out. He could have went to the podium and said, this isn't true. These are all just stories. People are linking me there because Stevie went there, whatever he had to say.
Has he said anything one way or the other, though, or he has not?
He acknowledged, basically just acknowledged that there is business happening at the club. When asked if he was surprised to be in Germany, he didn't say, why would I be surprised? I'm the captain of Liverpool Football Club, and it's preseason. He's like, there's business being done. Here's the thing. I said it this morning. I know you don't like to hear it. when there's this much smoke, there's real fire, and the fire's there. And the only person it helps that there are stories out in the media is Jordan Henderson if he wants to leave. And all he has to do to dissuade that is say, I don't want to go anywhere. And Klopp has clearly been a little irritable in the training sessions. I know they catch all the pictures with his big-ass grin on the bikes and kicking it around in the midfield today. But it is different, and there's a different feel to it, and it feels like it's real. And the guys that are talking, when it's Ornstein, when it's Neil Jones, when it's Melissa Reddy, these are all people that get things from players. And this feels a lot like it's all coming from the player because there's no positive for the club right now. They can't win in this situation.
See, I don't know, because I feel like out of all those names, I think we were talking about this earlier as well. I mean, King is one that we know has the inside route to handle, having written the biography and stuff like that. So I felt like anything that's coming from him has a bit more of a weight to it. Whereas I can see Stevie G using his freaking connections and stuff like that in the Saudi Arabian side, because obviously the more Handel looks like he wants to steal, it's easier for them to negotiate a lower price. I think they were hoping that Klopp would be like, well, you've been loyal, I'm not going to stand in your way. But I think maybe, is it the timing you think that prevents Klopp from saying that, Bickler? Because if this happened in June, I could have maybe seen Klopp saying, hey, if you want to go, we're not going to stand in your way. You've been great for the club. Have a nice life. But it feels like because of the timing, we're a bit more of a stickler in terms of getting money for it.
I mean, I think we can say timing definitely plays a factor into it, but I think it just has to do with who it is, who you're losing. And it's amazing to me how many people, I'm reading online and people are not okay with Fabinho leaving for 40 million, but they're okay with Henderson leaving for 10. And that's absolutely wild to me. And apparently the club agrees with me because they didn't want to let him leave for anything less than 25. Because what you lose from a leadership standpoint and what he does to the fabric of that locker room and all the additional things that come with being a captain and what he means to the community and stuff, you can't just go out on the market and buy that. It is really, really difficult to go and replace a player like that. And I think that has more to do with it than the timing. But I'm with you, man. It feels like a betrayal. It feels like a betrayal to the core. Not only the fact that it happened in general, including two of our club legends, but the fact that Henderson didn't come out and get in front of it in any way. Right. And I think that it's interesting. I basically was very critical of this, and I got absolutely blasted on social media by mostly Liverpool people, local Liverpool people, which I find incredibly interesting because of the ethos behind a blue collar city who's primarily fairly liberal, left leaning, in saying that he has every right to go chase this money because it's, he's protecting his future generations. And it's look, can we stop talking about Jordan Henderson like he works at Subway and is going at getting a 6-figure salary? The dude has generational wealth already. And if we're talking about he wants minutes, no, he doesn't, dude. People go chase minutes in lower leagues when they're in their early 20s to try to go get that contract, right? You don't go when you're 34 years old to go chase minutes in another league because you're not playing for your next contract. And I get it. It's a lot of money, a ton of money. I get that. But I just think for everything Jordan Henderson has built his brand at Liverpool on and what he stands for, he basically just destroyed it in a series of days. Because everything that he's doing here really stands against what he's built his brand on.
Are those people saying that because they don't appreciate the value of Handel anyway, you think, Gally? If it was, I don't know, let's say if it was Diaz doing this or Mo doing this or somebody else doing this that, everybody's oh, he's such a good player, blah, blah. Would it be more of an outrage and people would not come out and be he's taking care of his grandkids and that bullshit?
I think they're doing it because he's British. Be quite honest.
I do too. I think they're protecting him a little bit because he's British. I think it is the fact that it is a very modest area where people don't make a lot of money, so they see and hear these opportunities, and they do kind of put these players for whatever reason, good or bad, almost they're going through it with them. Those aren't the same Scouse people, just so we're all on the same page. and none of them live in Liverpool, by the way. But the idea of what Henderson's going through and why it's such a big deal, to me, it all comes back to 2 years ago when he was up for his contract, right? And at that time, the club was trying to pay him like an aging player. And Henderson was looking for a payday like a player who was going to play. And he wanted assurances from Klopp that he was still in his plans to be like an everyday player. And if the reports are true, and there's some pretty solid reporting on this, there were multiple meetings between Klopp and Henderson, especially. All of this started as soon as Sociaball signed. I'm telling you, he saw his replacement sign. He didn't think they were signing a player that would replace him because Thuram was years away from taking his job. Like, in his mind, Curtis Jones is years away. They signed 2 players, and Klopp was very honest with him. Those 2 players, at full strength, are ahead of you in the pecking order. And he started to realize he was Milner on this team, and he wanted no part of it. And the reporting says he did not want a smaller role. And that's from like the circles within the club. The guy, I think it was Mo Lewis from the Anfield Rap, was talking about it on Sirius XM this morning, saying there were murmurs in Liverpool saying Jordan Henderson was saying things like, I am still a starter wherever I play or I don't play here. He has that much confidence, and I don't think he wanted to be a bit part player. And I'm telling you, Steven Gerrard got in his ear, and the one we should be angry at is Steven Gerrard, because he used all of his experiences of getting benched on that Wednesday afternoon in Madrid in the middle of a Champions League run. And he's like, it was never the same again. Never once was it ever the same, not between me or the manager. And I don't think Jordan Henderson wants that. And believe it or not, I think he'd rather leave this way than sit on the bench and be an unused sub when you have 5 subs available to you. And I think he sees that happening possibly, and he didn't want it. And I don't respect it, but I understand it because he's one of the best competitors I've watched in the last decade at that club. And I couldn't imagine him playing a small role.
But
I think that's what he's afraid of.
I think that's the exact reason why I don't buy that scenario, that he was going to sit on the bench. Because when I saw the training videos and I saw the dude, and I was like, holy cow, he's ripped. And he looked like a dude who came to camp saying, not that fast, nobody's getting the jersey from it.
I agree, but it's not that easy when they go out and spend that
He's a guy
money
who didn't go in the past to stay and earn a spot. If he has that much confidence in saying he's a starter, and I highly doubt Klopp is like, I don't care how good you are, I'm only going to play you 50 minutes.
Well, here's the thing.
Penciled in starter.
Time catches up with every single player. Time is still undefeated. He runs. Last year, he didn't run. He was poor. We remember him as good because our midfield was so bad. He wasn't good last year. And statistically, it was his worst.
Last year for midfield,
but it was his worst year yet. And time is catching up. I think the contract, and if you think he didn't have conversations with Klopp about his playing time, and that has something to do with this, and him seeing the writing on the wall, Trent's moving of positions, him being dropped more into the 6, he didn't want that. I mean, they let James Milner go, and I think there was a natural progression. He's falling down the pecking order. He didn't want to play cup games with kids. He didn't, and he doesn't.
But if you're a competitor, right? If you're a competitor, you're 33 years old. Like, you're telling me you don't have the self-awareness to understand that, like, hey, I'd rather rotate out, contribute and be a mentor to my the next captain of this club, and like at least like play a role in what we do here. No, I'd rather go to a league that nobody's going to watch with no path to Europe and like play in. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why you would go. Like, the only thing that makes sense is like you're not necessarily happy and you want 4 times the money you're making now. And like that's just disappointing to me, though. It's disappointing because, like, to me, Jordan Henderson doesn't have a reason to be upset. Like, at 33 years old, you shouldn't be a starter. That's not in the best interest of any club.
But I think that's his thing. He believes it.
According to that theory, though, Gally, then we're saying if there was no Saudi Arabia, if somehow they couldn't sign him there and give him this money, according to that theory, he doesn't want to just sit. He would rather go to Southampton and start.
Yeah, he would. Case. No, I do believe he would. I honestly think he'd be angling for a move right now if he thought he was James Milner. Why did James Milner leave? James Milner left because they told him, you aren't even the bit part player. We want you to be on the backroom staff. And he said, I got a year or two left in me. I'm going to go help Brighton. This is what happens at most big clubs. The only difference is this is our captain who did it 2 weeks before the season started. And to me, you guys, and I know you said this morning, Timuchin, like, could he be our number 6? Is he the answer if Fab goes and you keep him? He can't stay at this point. Like, this is not in Klopp's DNA to keep him. I actually think he gets the armband stripped if he stays. I'm not kidding. Like, I think he's done.
I don't agree with that at all. I feel like
I think he's done irreparable damage to a reputation that I didn't think could be solely, honestly. And I think us being as angry as we are because we are actual supporters of him, I think he's in real, like, I think he gets booed by certain sets of supporters inside the stadium. Like, I think it got this bad. I genuinely do. And the fact he said nothing about it makes it 10 times worse because it actually gives it credibility.
I think that actually opens the door for him. I don't know. I made a bid for his PR guy and made a statement ready for him like last Wednesday, I think it was. I mean, I can just clip that and send it to him and he can read that out and like be, just fucking like sail into the starting lineup eventually. But I just don't think the backlash would be as much if because he hasn't said anything. I think that kind of buys him some space as opposed to him saying, yeah, like, I would rather go and, if he used the bullshit about playing time or something like that. Because I disagree. I don't think if that money is not dangling there and Stevie G is not freaking coming up with it, I don't think he leaves anywhere just because he's only playing 20 minutes or 30 minutes. He's not going to a lesser team to play 90 or whatever. Not to mention, kind of like what Vic was saying, I don't know which team is going to be telling Henderson, yeah, come over here. You're going to be in the starting 11 guaranteed.
It's just such nonsense, and it's just another knucklehead move by Stevie G he's going to a league where he's coaching one of the teams that's not owned by sovereign money, so he's going to finish 5th at best. He's got a transfer budget of $13 million, all of which he's going to spend on one 33-year-old player. Like, it's just the whole thing is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
It is. No offense. We'll be rooting against. Not that he had a chance to start, go do anything anyway, because he's not one of the 4 freaking teams owned by the guys who are going to win the league. That's
a resume builder.
Mistake right there, but he will not be getting very far with that. And, if you're spending your entire transfer budget, I really think that, he probably thought he could get Hando for free or something like that, but I just don't see that happening at this point. But we'll see what happens with that. So let me ask you guys this. Bickler, let's start with you on this one. If, because of all this, does that change the plans with Trent in any way? I think we were pretty much in agreement that we did not see him shifting to midfield this year with the 2 coming in and stuff like that. And the fact that we didn't sign any center backs, does this force us or maybe give us the opportunity, if you look at it that way, to kind of change things around? Or is it too late in the game because it's freaking middle of July?
I don't think this changes much of anything. I mean, I really think that Henderson was going to be heavily rotated, right? So, I mean, although I do think that the move to inverted right back essentially protected both players, I think that, like, what we saw from Trent being moved into that role was such a, like, boost for not only Trent but the rest of the team that we were going to see variations of that regardless of who's in front of him.
Yeah, I agree.
But definitely, so we're sticking with the original plan, though. Like, he would not be going to midfield because there's a lot.
No, I don't think he's. No, I do. No.
Yeah,
no.
Okay. So we're saying
anybody who thinks that Henderson leaving is going to put Trent in midfield just wanted Trent to be in midfield to begin with.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, like, everybody is like, people who were even on the fence now, they're like, well, now that these guys are gone, it's definitely going to happen. And I still don't think, just because mainly we do not have enough center backs to go around. I
blame this entire thing on Galley saying that 2 things are going to happen on opening day that were going to disappoint people, and it was going to be Trent at right back, it was going to be Henderson in the starting lineup, and now look what you did, Galley, you jerk.
It is true. I did make that call, and like usual, things I say just upset the masses.
So what do you expect then? How about you, Gally? I mean, you said you agree, but what do you expect to see in midfield now then, I guess, for that starting lineup against Chelsea?
I mean, honestly, at this point, if Jordan Henderson is still in the side, he's going to play the 6 and probably. And no one's going to like this. Jordan Henderson will play the 6, and McAllister will start on one side, and Jones will start on the other. I still don't think he'll start Dominic if he doesn't have to at Chelsea in the first match on the road in the Premier League. If he doesn't have to, it's looking more and more like he probably will. We'll see how preseason goes. This is a huge preseason now. I think Paul's point about McAllister being able to play in so many different positions helps. It's why I really think if they're smart, they stay close to Bayern and they try to get Gravenberch, and they hope that they have a chance to get Kane, and they need to raise some funds. I don't want Goretzka. That ship sailed 5 years ago when he picked Bayern over us then. But I genuinely think he's probably the right piece right now for this midfield because he offers so much, both playing in the double pivot or as a standalone 6 or pressing forward if you needed him to. I expect us to play a lot of that back 3, kind of that inverted with Trent tucking in when we're in possession. And if that's happening, you need someone who can play in the double pivot. And I don't want to hear one more time. I've read it a few times. I don't want to hear one more time about Thiago used to play in the double pivot. I used to be 10 years younger too.
Yeah. Thiago will be there's like he won't even stand up. He'll be in the sliding tackle.
The links from the kid from Benfica are interesting. That's an interesting one.
Who?
Yeah. Luis from Benfica, who has just absolutely had a phenomenal season last year. He's another young one. To me, he's kind of in between that locked-in starter and Lavia in terms of his development for me.
I was just going to say, the issue there is he's had 28 appearances, but they were in Portugal. Lavia at least had 29 appearances getting relegated in the Premier League. It's crazy. These are the guys we're about to spend 50 to 70 million on, which is why the market is so insane. I just don't know how you do this.
Which I think is why the Saudi Arabia thing is even happening. I think the Premier League money got to the point where if you're outside of the Premier League, you can't touch these players. So where do they go? So I think it almost primed the entire market for Saudi Arabia to happen.
But you think at the same time Premier League is happy that they can dump some of these people and get their 20-30 back? Because if
they have to be.
What would Chelsea do?
I think you're happy. You're happy until you find out that Chelsea's getting bailed out of all their problems based on the fact that there is a league dumb enough to buy all their mistakes, right? And
that's connected to that league. So,
but the crazy part to me is the guys who would have been perfect. We end up needing a midfielder for 40-50 million, and we could have bought Ruben Neves for 40-50 million over the last 3 seasons and got a Premier League ready midfielder that would have improved us in multiple positions. There's so many of these players, but then you hear about West Ham getting turned down, offering 45 million for Paulinho from Fulham and them saying 80. 80 will get the job done. If Paulinho is 80 million, well, then I guess maybe Jude Bellingham really is worth 130. I mean, it's crazy. Paulinho, he was good, really good. Probably the best player on Fulham, top to bottom, all last season. 80 million? Get the fuck out of here.
Is that because they already lost Mitrovic? They're we definitely don't want to get relegated, so we get relegated.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing is these players, these clubs are forced to put price tags on players that scare people away, right? I mean, I think they know that Paulinho is a player they can build around, and they just don't want. Same thing with. I mean, look, I think that Brighton did the same thing with Caicedo. I think Chelsea's just stupid enough to come in and do that, right? And they're Brighton's all right, well, I guess we're just gonna buy a new team of South Americans.
Yeah. I think they have the system to be able to replace him, and that's a big ordeal. You look at a team like Ajax and stuff like that. Yeah, they can sell it because they have the system already in place. The next guy is coming right up. The next guy is coming right. I don't think Fulham is in that situation. Michael Martin says, why am I the only one that would like us to consider Tyler Adams? Is that USA colored glasses? My answer is yes. What is your answer, Galen?
Oh, it's not you. If the question is, would you be interested in trying to take a flyer on Tyler Adams to play a role in your team? It's not USA colored glasses. I mean, the guy's he's been linked to big clubs in the past, and he proved last year. I mean, statistically, he was the best defensive midfielder in the Premier League last year, and it wasn't even close. Tackles won, tackles made, dribbles, completed passes. He actually played well for Leeds. When he was healthy, he was the best they were. Now, the team was shit in his first year in the Premier League. There's a reason United, City, Arsenal were talking about moves from. Problem with Tyler Adams is he plays less than the broken down players in our midfield, and he's in his early 20s. So for me, it's more of an injury thing. I think Tyler Adams is a really good player, probably the most technically gifted American player, honestly, all around. But, he's the project. The problem is we need an article, like a finished article. Let's be honest. If we could have gotten Calvin Phillips, the one playing every day that earned himself a starting spot in the England national team from Leeds, we'd take him right now because he was an established Premier League player. You don't want the Calvin Phillips who had their absolute fucking life shattered by Pep by him telling him you're not smart enough to figure out how to, one-touch, two-touch pass. And he hasn't turned down or picked a salad at the lunch bar in a while, so he's struggling with the stones he carries on him. But, those are the types of players I really think we need. You just got to go through the league. The problem is there aren't many of them anywhere.
We could just go get turned down by Tchouaméni twice. That feels nice.
Well, it just proves that he never wanted to come here in the first place. So
when he's up on social media liking posts that he's not going anywhere.
And then still the next day there's reports he's coming and people are like, and we could get Tchouaméni. And I'm like,
the dude doesn't want to come here.
Honestly, the worst thing for me that has happened, aside from obviously if Hendo and Bobby leave at the same season, that's kind of like definitely damaging for my psyche. But the fact that all the transfer shit came back, like we were pretty much done. The preseason had started, but we're like maybe one more and stuff. And now it's go time again. There's like 100 names being thrown around because they know. So let me ask you guys that. I give you both scenarios and how many players do you think we will need to replace? If Fab goes, Gally, how many do you want to get signed? I think you already answered the question with Fab and Hendo in terms of, one experience, one project. But
yeah,
if Fab is gone, are you content with getting Lavia and we move on?
Yes, I will handle it. If Henderson's staying and you have Lavia, I think you have your veteran and you have your project.
Okay. Bickler. If Fab goes, if Fab and Hendo goes. Because bear in mind, as of last week, we were kind of hoping for one more midfielder. So now we're kind of like subtracting as well. But where are you at?
So if Henderson stays, I still think we need three. I think we need a midfielder, a center back, and I still think that we need some semblance of a right-sided attacker. I know that like everyone look, Gally, just because we have 11 left-sided attackers doesn't mean that we can just continually flop them over the right side.
He's gonna play Doak and Gordon on the right-hand side as cover.
That's not he's going to doesn't mean it's a solution.
It's what he's
we went through this when he said he's going to not buy a midfielder because we have 8 last summer and we saw how that worked out. It worked out exactly how he thought it would work out. Not well.
2 mids and a center back, says Shelton. To be fair, I think Gally, you were just answering in terms of midfielders, right? You're still probably advocating for a center back signing if doable.
Oh, I definitely am, but I genuinely think that if the reports are true that Klopp actually was dumb enough to have another personal conversation with a player under contract with another team, he's just proving that you go back to the well once too often and it'll work. Because if it's true that he actually had a personal conversation with Levi Colwell and his family about their willingness to wait, almost like what he did with Van Dijk when he talked to Van Dijk, tapped him up and said, hey, if they slap me on the wrist, we'll just wait another year, but we're going to come back and get you. That's basically how the conversation went. I don't think you're getting Colwell out of Chelsea this year. So if you really want that player, you are waiting another year. And let's be honest, we don't need to sign a center back. We have 4 of them. I don't think they are long-term the right 4, but we have 4 under contract, and 1 can give you cover at right back. So for me, I don't think a center back is coming in unless one literally creeps up out of nowhere. At this point, I think we're going to have to spend all the resources we have in the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I can, see this is where it goes back to the sporting director, man. Find a cheap gem that you know of and nobody knows of in the Bundesliga or something like that and bring that on board if you cannot get Colwell. Because I do agree, I don't think they spend a lot of money for another center back unless it is Colwell. That's the guy they want. If anything, if they feel like they need cover, I feel like it would be a cheaper option, a project. If it works out, it works out. If not, not. And that's where I think our sporting director should come in. So with that right-sided conversation, I was going to ask this anyway, but now you opened it up, Vickler, so I'll ask you. Where do you guys see Harvey's role this season? As the way things are now, and I really don't think Handle maybe, but I don't think obviously Fab affects what happens with Harvey. So what do you see as Harvey's role this year? Bear in mind, this dude was like the only dude who started every game and stuff for the longest time, and now he's a slight afterthought.
I know, which seems crazy to me that he played as much as he did, because like he does seem like an afterthought. I'll tell you, if they play this formation where Trent plays that inverted role, I don't see a role for Harvey Elliott, and I think he's going to struggle to get time. To me, he's one of those ones that doesn't. He's a Carvalho for me. He's a nice player that doesn't fit tactically, and I don't know how they reckon that. I don't know how they sort of like reconcile that.
Does he change his game in some way to adapt, or what would he need to change in his game, Gally, to adapt to fill that role and be in that rotation on the right hand side?
I think the biggest problem is he has to change the one thing he can't, which is pace. Like genuinely, because honestly, he's an attacker. He's not. We've all said this, right? We don't think he's a midfielder, especially in this system. And if Trent's going to be tucking in, you have to do more defensively, not less. And I just don't see him doing it. And so I feel like the midfield's almost passed him by. I think, I forget, maybe it was Mike Martin said Harvey League Cup. I actually think that's what it ends up being. I think Harvey Elliott gets minutes in cup competitions, and I think he ends up being what Paul doesn't want to hear, the alternate option to a Ben Doak or a Kai Gordon on the right. And I think he actually, in League Cup matches and in the Europa League, he can play. He did it last year. His best performances were 3 FA Cup games in a row where he started on the right. They were his best performances the second half of the season. The winner against Wolves.
You just got done saying that he needs to fix the one thing he can't, pace.
Well, first of all,
that's our entire front three is predicated on pace.
Yeah. But at some point, they are going to have to alter some tactical moves. And at some point, then you're going to run the ball through Diaz on the left instead of Mo on the right. And at some point, Jota doesn't have the same top-end pace that Darwin has or Diaz has, but he still does the job for us on the left. And I'm not comparing Elliott to him. But we've had slower players in the front three compared to other speedsters that we've had in the past. Like, it isn't like we've never played with it. We all argued that Ox couldn't do it, and then every 5 minutes, Timuchin would have him starting in the middle through the false nine.
He needed those opportunities, damn it, and I still stand by it. But, I mean, the thing is, like with Jota, I understand what you're saying. Like when he doesn't have the top speed that maybe, but he has a lot of other things.
No, he's a poacher. He's a goal scorer. I'm not comparing. I'm just using an example of how the tactics change at times depending on which way we're running the side through.
I just don't know they changed. I don't know if they change enough. That's a separate conversation.
Why I really don't like Jota on the left, to be fair.
And again, this is where I come back to. I'm not saying that this is what we should do. I'm saying you asked me what his role will be. I'm giving you. I think he's the 7th or 8th midfielder. Is honestly what I think he is, and I don't think that's good enough for a player with those skills. Once again, if you can't find your tactics to fit him, then find a club for him to play at and sell him for a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
my.
I can see that happening next offseason, to be honest with you. Unless something's changed or he changes his game, or obviously he's not going to get any faster. But I mean, unless his defensive rate changes and he improves that, and I just don't see it because it's not the style of player that he is. So you're kind of like asking him to do something that he's not built to do. But Harvey Elliott says, Michael.
Cheers.
Pretty well.
That's pretty good, Michael.
Snyder says I missed the show. Well, to be fair, you didn't miss a whole lot.
Yeah, you didn't miss much, bro.
Same old ramblings we probably do every week over here.
The internet's forever. It's taped.
I agree. I mean, I really would rather have Jota on the 9, but I know what Gally's saying. Like in a pinch, you can use him as a winger as well. So, end of the show as we approach it over here before it really comes off the rails. Prediction time for next Monday. When we sit here next Monday, will Bickler be wearing purple? Galley.
No.
Okay, that is correct. So another question. Another question for next week. Will Hendo and Fab still be Liverpool players? Bickler, you can also answer the purple question.
Will both of them be Liverpool players?
Yes.
I do not think the Henderson situation will be sorted. I think Fabinho will be done by then.
Okay, and the purple?
I can neither confirm nor deny whether laundry will be done then.
Galley, who is staying? Who is going? Who is the Liverpool player next week? Is Hendo and Fab are still part of the? Are they in the camp?
Well, Fab definitely will not be in camp.
Maybe we'll join them afterwards. Get some
I think Hendo will still be there. To Paul's point, I don't know that he'll be there by whatever August 13th or whatever the first day of the season is. I genuinely think Fab will be done in the next 48 hours. It seems like it's formalities at this point. And at that point, I think we just have to hopefully have some serious discussions around a replacement.
Yeah, I don't even have to ask Saito if he wants Hendo gone. I knew he would be all over.
I was going to say, I wanted to yell out to him. He didn't miss much except for a program that he would have disagreed with 80% of.
Glad to be part of that 20%.
But we appreciate you.
Hendo, so he would appreciate that, I think. So, okay, going back to that part with one guy gone, this time next week, Galley, is there a new name in that camp?
No.
that was a fake. He faked you out. So what do you have, Bickler?
Yeah, I don't think so yet. I think there'll be another one coming. I just don't think it'll be done by next Monday.
Okay. I'll go with Fab out. Hendo is still there. So Saito can start crying now. And I do think there will be one name coming in, especially with Fab going out, that situation getting sorted out. And I would probably be it's odd because now I feel like if we do get Lavia and Fab out Lavia, and I would feel more comfortable. I'm okay with that midfield, which is kind of odd because I know a week or so ago we felt like we still needed one more person. And I would say go get a project to our sporting director. Sees at least, yes, Henderson. Yeah, I know. Don't get me started, Saito. Don't get me started. So let's end the show without tears.
Yeah, we just got Timuchin calm down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say he got through an entire show, and honestly, if it wasn't for talking about Henderson, he wouldn't have mentioned Bobby. And honestly, I thought that was I was really proud of him for that. He almost got through the show without having to bring him up. And then
he got all emotional, and Ox got brought up again. And
and then Ox came up, and he was like, "Don't you get me going? Don't you let me fight for my children?"
Yeah, it's gonna be a sad night. I'm gonna have to drink myself to sleep or something. But I think same thing with Bobby. These two guys were guys that I felt like.
How dare you criticize my lifestyle right now, Gally?
Victor has kids.
No.
So, aren't those players that you can say to somebody young, hey, you know what? This is a good role model to follow on the pitch, off the pitch kind of thing. And I mean, this team has a lot of likable characters and stuff. I don't know if I want to tell my kids, see Robertson, this is what you want to be doing kind of deal. But I think with Bobby and Hendo, they were that kind of player on and off, smile on the face, very professional, go about their business kind of a thing, hardworking, good work rates. And you didn't have a game where you said, they might not have played great, but you could never doubt the work rate they put in and the shift they put in, I guess. Go ahead, Gal.
It feels like that's why they've decided to let Thiago run down his contract. Because I think right now, especially for the non-English speaking players, Thiago is the veteran leader in the dressing room. And I think Thiago plays. Well, I mean, he does speak every single language that anyone in the whole dressing room speaks. But I genuinely think for Diaz, for Nunez, I think it's important, even for Alisson, losing Fabinho and Bobby in the same summer for Alisson is a big deal. These are his Brazilian guys. They did the holidays together, but they still have Thiago. They still have Luis Diaz. They still have, a young Darwin. But listen, that's real. I think that actually plays into things when it comes to like the players coming in. Like we had this blend of talent and people right on this side, and I feel like now it's like it really is on Thiago, Virgil, and Mo, and then it's time for Trent to step up as like the Englishman in this side and be the leader. Because God help us if it's Curtis Jones. Have you seen those goddamn pants on holiday? What? God help us. Anyone who wears those pants.
Gally is like the 90-year-old get off my lawn guy when it comes to fashion, dude. Again,
I guarantee you that he hangs out with Calvert Lewis though. 100%. 100%.
No question. I mean, have you seen this dude? I mean, the picture with him and Dr. Dre in LA was amazing. And I was shocked because Curtis Jones literally looked like he was a homeless person standing next.
Curtis Jones may make us favorites for Kelvin Phillips.
Man, you guys on fashion, man. Unbelievable. But anyway, I mean, I think that was one of my...
Look at that purple shirt.
What do you mention with the Thiago and stuff? Because when Fab happened, after that, I was like, who is Ali going to hang with? He's not going to be too thrilled about this, was my thoughts. And... yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of dynamics changing. But hey, I mean, we'll talk about probably in the upcoming shows about like who's going to replace the leadership if Hando does go and Saidu is happy. We'll come back and like talk about it and see who replaces Hando in that leadership role. But I still feel like, you know, in some ways, yeah, if you're in a winning mode, it's a bit easier to replace that. But when you struggle and you don't have that leadership, shit can go down really fast.
You make a guy like Harry Maguire your captain.
Yes. Well, he's available. You said you want a center back. There you go. Done. Bring him over with his leadership. Well, everybody, if you're listening right now, give us a like, a follow. Head on to the YouTube channel. Give us a subscription there as well. All free, all good, and it's all us. So I don't know if that's a good part at the end, but I will be back to Wednesday morning with the morning show, so stay tuned for that. And this gang will be here with us next week, next Monday. Thanks to all those following, commenting. We'll see you guys next week.